You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Welcome to the Cricket Podcast, everyone, for some more IPL action on this Tuesday, the 8th of April. We've got games from today. Chennai Super Kings going down to the Punjab Kings. Lucknow Super Giants overturning the Kolkata Knight Riders, and we'll be talking about a big one from yesterday as well, with Mumbai Indians losing to one of the big boys from this season for sure, RCB. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Dan Weston. Good to have you on the show, Dan. Have you enjoyed the beginning of the week in the IPL?
Oh, mate, it's been superb. Couple of good matches as well recently, which is probably but the trend of the week before. So delighted with the last few days of the IPL. Really enjoying it.
Yeah, I think it's there've been some pretty big games as well. Like teams. CSK today, Mumbai Indians really needing a win. So it felt like there was a bit of jeopardy early in the tournament. And I think the games did deliver. We had a quiet week 2 in the tournament, and I think it's sort of back with a bang into what are we? Week 3, I guess.
Jeopardy though, Jack. I mean, as much jeopardy as you could have in a league that doesn't have promotion, relegation, or Champions League. So it's all relative.
Yeah. I mean, like there's the playoff jeopardy, qualification jeopardy for sure. I mean, like Mumbai, CSK, Sunrisers. As we look at the table now, 1 win from 5 games for each of them. Now, it's not inconceivable that one of them puts a run together, but it can really only be one of them if one of them does make a run, and they're big names in the IPL. It looks like we're going to have a kind of wide open tournament from the perspective of, in quotes, some of the smaller teams, maybe, and we've seen them play some really good cricket. So that's where we are. Before we get going with the pod, a reminder to like and subscribe on whichever platform you are watching or listening on. That could be YouTube, that could be Spotify, that could be iTunes. We can see you. We can see that there's a large number of people, will you believe this, Dan, who listen or watch regularly but haven't bothered to click that button. I mean, come on. One thing, that's all we ask.
What's your percentages?
Oh, it's something like 60% of people who listen regularly or watch regularly don't click the subscribe button. So what's wrong with you? Do us a favour.
Absolutely.
It's on you. And if you really like the show, why don't you sign up to Patreon, patreon.com/thecricketpod. That's in the show notes, so you can just click that directly, head over there. Dan, we're going to do some stuff together exclusively for Patreons, aren't we? I think the idea we're batting around for the first one of those is a ranking of all the T20 leagues in the world. And I think we came up with 12 that we wanted to rank from worst to first. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, what's going to happen is the Cricket Podcast boys, we're going to do the vibes selection. Like which leagues do we kind of like watching the most, and then Dan's going to tell us what he's going to be like the quality assurer. He's going to tell us which are really the best leagues.
So I get to judge you and Max and Ross.
Yeah, sure, if you want. Like, I mean, like I've got a personal look. Small spoiler. I've got. I actually quite enjoy the BBL. That would be quite high up on my list of vibes leagues, but. Like I suspect you probably got a different take on the quality of the BBL in the 12 that we're going to have a look at. But yeah, that's fun. If that sort of thing appeals to you, patreon.com/thecricketpod is where to go. Dan, let's talk some IPL. We'll go back in time, starting from today. Punjab v CSK. As I said, CSK kind of a must-win game for them. And in our preview on Sunday, we said this was an opportunity as well for Punjab to prove that they're for real after a decent start to the season. And they kind of went about it in a very Punjab Kings of Comedy way, but it was effective. Like rather than the old Punjab where whoever was playing the role of Priyansh Arya, may have got 50 off 20, while everyone else was getting 0 or 4. He's got 103 or 42, one of the best knocks I've seen in the IPL. I mean, off the top of my head, certainly from like making a statement innings. Like there's few that are above it. It was remarkable stuff. 7 4s, 9 6s for him. And while the sort of the bonfire at the other end was happening as well, that's what made it even more incredible. Eventually, he was out, handed the baton on to Shashank Singh and Marco Jansen, who were helped by some dubious fielding from the Chennai Super Kings boys on their way to a fairly healthy partnership. That meant, in the end, Punjab Kings, and they end up with 219 on the board. And they hit around some big boys. Patarana, I've never seen him get dispatched like that. He went at 13 and over, 52 or 4 overs for him. What could Chennai do in response? That was the question we were all wondering, and the question which would determine the outcome of the game. And I am afraid to say, for the boys in yellow, it was a little bit uninspiring. Some fairly lethargic batting throughout. It was slightly rescued in terms of the end result by some hitting from Dhoni near the end, and a little bit of hitting from Shivam Dubey as well. But they run out pretty bad losers, I would say. I mean, an 18-run margin of defeat in a T20 is a fairly handy beating. Finishing on 201 for 5. Punjab, Dan, let's start with them. Are they actually for real? Are they for real, or is it still too early to say?
It's an amazing question, Jack. I don't know if they're for real, because you can never really say that about Punjab. I think we've learned that over the years. But they're looking good. They didn't even need to use Shian Sheikh today, as that impacts up with the, which they might have had to do if Marco Jansen or Shashank Singh got out early just with the, I think it was about 38 balls to go when the 6th wicket went down. So that was good for them. They've got this knack at the moment of someone contributing or multiple players contributing, and I think that's often the mark of a successful team. So long may that continue for the boys in red. And yeah, I think they look reasonably well set. And the fact that, as you say, an uncapped player getting a century with 9 sixes is just, was it his 4th game in the IPL? Just bodes so well.
Yeah, 4th game.
Yeah, just bodes so well for them. Bit weird with the ball in terms of tactics, I found. Obviously, they were pretty fearful of bowling Chahal against the 2 lefties when Dubey and Conway were in. And the fielding was, I mean, for both teams was, I mean, to call it average would be paying it a massive compliment. I mean, the Lockie Ferguson drop was something. If you haven't seen it, anyone hasn't seen it, just try and find it on social media. It was quite something. I mean, both teams fielded very, very poorly, and yeah, that's probably a work on for them. Chennai, on the other hand, probably with a lot more to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Priyansh, Arya. Someone's going to correct my pronunciation of that. Let's go with Priyansh for now until we get the correct pronunciation coming up in the chat. I mean, he was dropped himself, wasn't he? I think on 4 or 6 by Mukesh, I want to say. And that could have really changed the game. I mean, so fielding is definitely... There's definitely a... I mean, if we're talking about it from the Chennai point of view, and let's talk about Chennai because it's dire straits for them. That they look really old in the field. It wasn't just a case of like a couple of drops. It was sort of people labouring around the boundary or doing dives, but putting in the dive, but really going down in stages. I can't remember who it was. There was an edge, I think, of Marco Jansen, near the end of the first innings, and it went past a very fine short third, who he dived like a building that had been rigged for a pre-planned demolition. Like it went down so slowly and so carefully. But by the time he was even on his knees, the ball had shot past him. And I just sort of look at Chennai this year, Dan. The field's kind of emblematic, I think, of a team that maybe is built for a different era of the IPL, even with some big names in there. Is that a fair comment, or are we looking at 5 games and maybe we need to take a bigger picture view here?
No, I think it's a problem that they've had for a long period of time. I mean, in years gone by, I've assessed the non-boundary strike rate run concession for each team, and Chennai are often one of the worst teams for that. So they have to make up runs with the bat in terms of boundaries. And as we've seen this year, they're not really set up for that. So they've got this kind of double whammy where they're conceding a decent amount in the field and then are struggling to reel in the opposition on the boundary count. I mean, Punjab 11 fours and 16 sixes. And then you've got Chennai, who before the match was just over 14% boundary percentage for the whole tournament. So, it's asking a lot. I mean, as crazy as it is, I think that if you asked me at half time what the sort of distribution of probabilities was, I would have said that Chennai getting within 20 odd is probably in the upper range of outcomes for them, actually.
Can we talk about Devon Conway? He's back in the side. I think he's been back in the side for a couple of games now. People were calling for this change. Still not opening with Gaikwad, which arguably is I'm not saying it would have won them the game here, but arguably is the best lineup for Chennai. Conway today, 69 off 49 balls, which doesn't sound awful. But he's retired out in kind of humiliation. It was like retired out brackets humiliation today. Talk us through that decision, which was probably questionable at the point in the game, and also talk us through how Chennai can maybe sort their batting out and what they could do to make a chase of 220 a little bit more realistic.
Okay, so we'll go with Conway to start with before looking at the CSK in a little bit more detail. Conway is in like the situation. They retired him out with 14 balls to go when they needed 55 to win of 14 balls. So I think the phrase there is locking the stable door after the horse has bolted. There is no way on this earth that at that point that Jadeja coming in is going to boost their expected run production to anywhere near 55 or 14 balls. In fact, I'd be very surprised if he even was able to boost their expected run production full stop. I don't understand the decision. Jadeja's got one of the lowest boundary percentages of any batter in the IPL in recent years, who's batted a reasonable sample size. And I don't see the answer. But then there was no other answers, because it's either, if you're going to sub him off, which it's a contentious decision itself. I think Conway got to when I say 50 off 38, so he got his last 19-ish off 11, which isn't that bad. I mean, maybe in the context of the Jays, it's not great, but if you think Jadeja's going to score at a better rate than that, I think you're going to be pretty disappointed. It's either Jadeja or Vijay Shankar at that point. So I think that the entire lineup needs a complete rejig, and it starts, I think, with this crazy decision to move Gaikwad down to 3 to accommodate the two overseas openers. Ravindra, for me, should play. I think he's probably got a higher level of intent than Conway, which this team needs. But I'd open him with Gaikwad, and I think that at this point in time, Jamie Overton probably needs to play, just because they've got nothing. They don't have anyone else who can offer that lower order hitting apart from Dhoni. We know Dhoni's been discussed numerous times, his entry points and where he likes to bat in the last 5 overs. Jamie Overton could help in that respect. And actually, then you could put Jadeja at maybe 5, because his non-boundary run production is pretty elite. So he can't really hit as well as the average player, but he can certainly run between the wickets and rotate the strike really effectively with say a Shivam Dubé who can bash some spin. So actually, you could look at it and have a Ravindra Gaikwad. Maybe, I don't know, 3 is a bit of an iffy one. Maybe you have to go with Vijay Shankar at 3, Dubé at 4, Jadeja at 5, Dhoni or Overton at 6 and 7, depending on the match situation. And then I think that they need to do a lot with their bowling as well, particularly the entry points, their paces and the power play bowling, and the knock-on effect that has on Ashwin. So look, I've been strong on this. I've tweeted this so many times over the tournament, and I'll continue to do it. So it's not after timing in the slightest. But they've got no power play bowling apart from Khalil Ahmed, who's I think a good power play bowler. Now, I don't understand how you can plan all this before an auction. In theory, that's what you should be doing at least, and you've got 3 months after the auction at least to plan your team combos before the tournament starts. And yet you're going with guys like Jamie Overton. I know he didn't play today, but Jamie Overton opening the bowling. I mean, he doesn't even do that in England. So like that's just poor planning. It's like Jamie Everton is fine as a bowling option, but as a middle overs a bowler, maybe early death, maybe one at the early death at the most. But he's not an opening bowler. It's not fair to put a player into that position. But they've been really, really reluctant to change that structure. Patarana, they don't like bowling on the power play, so he comes in with this really late entry point and basically pretty much bowls four in a row from one end after coming in to bowl. That's a luxury because a lot of the time the game's gone by then. Power play wickets are worth way more than death wickets, and I do feel that they've got a choice between. They need to make a choice between either bringing in a domestic bowler such as Gurjapneet, who's done pretty well in the power play, albeit at a lower level, or they need to bring in Nathan Ellis for Patharana because Ellis can bowl two up top and two at the back end. Then that stops Ashwin having to bowl so much in the power play, which is the areas where he's been hit. I think he's going at like sevens in the middle, and I think I saw a tweet. I haven't checked it, but he's going for like sevens in the middle and 15s in the power play. And so then that allows Ashwin to bowl more middle, and then you've got a much more settled over distribution planned out in that scenario. That's my view. I think as much as we know that the batting is an issue for them, I think the bowling is as much of an issue. Before the tournament in my YouTube preview videos, I said that CSK are a team. I think their biggest red flag would be posting or chasing 200 plus scores. We've definitely seen that so far, and the best thing that they could really probably do is to try and minimize the 200 scores that they have to post or chase, and that's going to be a bowling decision rather than a batting decision.
I personally would really love to see Gurjapneet given a go in the IPL. If you've seen any of his highlights, he looks like the sort of bowler that could be. He's probably going to have a limited role. He'll probably be quite a power play specialist based on sort of what I've seen, but he looks like the sort of person who can get it moving and could solve what Dan's outlined there is a real problem for Chennai. I get the feeling with Chennai a little bit though that there's a lot of talk around this year's IPL about a new generation of players, and I feel like Chennai maybe whiffed on that in the auction. Have gone with guys that are sort of yesterday's men to some extent. 7 out of 8 on the overseas front as well, I think is always a little bit of a red flag when it comes to auction strategy. And I really think, looking at that team, that they've kind of they're like a poor man's Gujarat Titans in terms of how this team sets up a little. In that you've got Gaikwad's great. Gaikwad compares well to the 3 guys at Gujarat Titans, but the 2 Kiwis just aren't quite at the Butler, Gill, Sudarsan level, I don't think. And Chennai have sort of built a team from a batting perspective that expects them to be at that level, and I think that's tricky. I think that's a tricky problem to solve, and I'm not sure after 5 games that I've seen any evidence that they could do everything that you've just said there, Dan. And I still think that at some level it is kind of a fact that some of those players aren't as good as the teams they're competing against. I'd probably throw in. I'd probably throw in kind of Dhoni into that a little bit as well. I mean, Max and I talked about this the other day. He's still, I think, got a use, but it's he's not among the best at the role he's playing. He's probably not even among the average at the role he's playing. He's among the kind of replacement level players at this point in time. And it's weird, right? When the IPL basically sort of turns into the History Channel every time he comes in, and we get this. I mean, I don't want to criticize Dhoni too much, because there's the history channel element joke there. Is comes with the caveat that he was really, really good, defined that role for quite a long time. But when you've got problems up the top of the order, you feel like, if you're sacrificing what they've sacrificed up the top of the order, you feel like the person coming in at 6 or 7 should be really, really good and balance that out a little bit. And I think it's just sort of like average, and then it gets worse, which is
look, I don't.
What you want to be.
Mind Dhoni, actually, to be honest with you. For 4 crore, keeper, places 10 12 balls to the death. Actually, I mean, there are worse buys there are worse buys in this CSK team, more retentions. There's compared to other teams as well. There's players who offer worse value than MS Dhoni in that situation. In my opinion, I think ultimately there's a massive problem here. Is that they just haven't got their team combinations right at all. And they haven't given the young players a chance. I've had a lot of people getting in touch with me saying, Sheikh Rashid has got a lot of potential as a batter. Vanch Bailey the same. I was really excited when they bought Anshul Kamboj in the auction for 3.4 crore, and then they haven't played him. And then the same for Gurjapneet as well. They paid 2.2 crore for him in the auction and haven't played him either. So that, it's not like they don't have options to give young players a go or younger players a go. They've just decided not to do it, and they've gone with like these veteran players or semi-veteran players who I think now, I mean, have got a pretty mediocre ceiling. I mean, like a guy like, he's not really so much of a veteran, but like Deepak Hooda is almost 30, sort of very limited ceiling. Vijay Shankar, very limited ceiling. Tripathi has probably a higher ceiling based on what he's done maybe in 2023, but still it's not that promising, and he's 34 now as well. Mukesh Chowdhury the same with the boards. A few people are saying in the chat as well. So look, these guys don't have a massive ceiling, and so I don't understand why they don't give new opportunities to other players or completely refresh the team combos. I mean, like, it was so obvious in the game before that their combos were all wrong, and then they pretty much doubled down on it today, which blows my mind.
Right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about KKR and Lucknow Super Giants, which was the earlier game today, and we're going to have a lot of fun when we do it.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Cricket Podcast. If you're watching live, why don't you click that like button? That would be nice. Poor ratio of likes to concurrent viewers as well, Dan, if we're doing percentages. About 20%. What's going on there? There's a button. You can click the button. The early game was Kolkata Knight Riders v Lucknow Super Giants. This had been moved from Sunday, as Max informed us, apparently at the request of the police. And here's what happened. Lucknow Super Giants, they batted first. And once again, they got off to a really, really nice start. Aidan Markram and Mitch Marsh proving some doubters wrong. And I would count myself among the doubters there, as they put on nearly 100 for the first wicket. Enter Nicholas Pooran, which is maybe the last person you want to see enter in the world when you're bowling and the other team are 99 for 1 and there's 10 overs to go. He gets 87 off 36 balls. Lucknow Super Giants end up on 238. It was it was a battering. Chakravarti kind of got away with it. Everyone else took a fair amount of punishment. Looked like a pretty difficult for Kolkata Knight Riders to chase. 239 from 20 overs. What's that? 12 and over from Dot.
Yeah.
But they kind of threatened. They started really, really well. Lost wickets quicker than the Lucknow Super Giants, but was scoring quicker than Lucknow Super Giants. 91 for 2 just after the power play. That's when Sunil Narayan was out, and it looked for a long time in this game that Lucknow Super Giants had kind of let it slip, and that Kolkata Knight Riders were going to batter the door down on the way to a famous victory. Rahane, he scored runs. Venkayaya in the runs again. But things started to jam up a little bit, well, quite significantly, after the fall of Ajinkya Rahane. He's out at 162. Then there's another wicket at 166. Then another one at 173, and then another one at 177. So 4 for 15 around the middle overs. That's always going to be a problem. Kudos again to Digvesh Ratty. Only 1 wicket for him this time, but does a lot to slow down the run rate. And I think some kudos. Yeah. And I think some kudos, in a way, kind of has to go to Lord Thakur, who bowled maybe the worst successful spell of bowling I've ever seen across 2 overs. He started, I think, 2 overs with 5 consecutive wides. Not 5 wides. He bowled wide, then he bowled another wide, then he bowled another wide, and it just went on and on and on. This was to begin and over. It was kind of embarrassing. Then he gets battered. Then off the last ball of the over, he bowls a wide full toss. You think it's going to get pounded, and this is when Rahane's out. He smashes it straight to cover, and then he sort of repeats the trick an over or so later. This time, getting Andre Russell. I don't really know what to make of it. Lord Shardul doing Lord Shardul stuff. Dan, Lucknow Super Giants, they're kind of a weird team. They do some things that look really, really bad, but here they are, 3 wins, 2 losses. They're actually in a fairly decent position. Pooran's in form, Mitch Marsh is in form. Bowling's mayhem. Very watchable side, I would say. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm still very much very kind of unsure about whether they're good or not. But they're, I'm tuning in for the first time in the existence of Lucknow Super Giants. They are must-see TV. That's my case closed. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, mate. I'm with you. Yeah. If we're talking about Gujarat outperforming the sum of their parts, I mean, Lucknow are doing that multiple. Like, honestly, I've never seen a team look so bad but get away with it. And I don't just mean on paper. I mean in the games as well. I mean, like even the game before with like Lord Thakur, I think there was one of his last overs in the game before, and that was just like full toss after full toss, and just get away with it non-stop. It's truly incredible. And then, like I said, that's the thing I said last time I was on the show. Like, I mean, Nicholas Pooran is going to have a worse back than mine, and that takes some doing because he's going to be carrying this team to qualification. If they're going to qualify, it'll be on him, and to some extent Mitch Marsh, who's dramatically outperformed my expectations. I still think the jury's well and truly out on whether him and particularly Markram can sustain what they're doing right now. But I'm sure they're going to have fun trying. I mean, like, the fact that this team can go 3 from 5 probably shows you how badly some of the other teams are doing right now. And they almost didn't defend it. Some strange stuff in the KKR innings. Rinku Singh coming in at number 8 was a bit weird when they needed quick runs. That was a strange decision. It was, maybe that was a match-changing decision. A couple of other things that I wanted to sort of chat about a little bit as well. One is Digvesh Rathy. I love this guy. He's just like, I love characters in sport, and he's got that. And for me, like that makes them a more watchable team as well. And but he's not. I think he's only on. Is he on a 30 or 50 crore contract? And like, I mean, the fines seem to be going up after every game. So I'm wondering if he might be the first IPL person to actually get fined more than he gets paid through the season. I mean, it's pretty harmless stuff. I don't really get why writing in a fake notebook deserves like thousands of pounds fine, or which I think that's what he's been getting recently. And like, I mean, it's pretty inoffensive, isn't it? Kesrick Williams, I think, used to do it back in the day. Don't really see a problem with it at all. And why would you want to stamp that out of cricket as well? You know, like this is fun. It's a personality thing, and why would you want players to be like robots? I don't really understand that. And I'm sure if Gary Neville was doing cricket commentary, he'd be complaining about Digvesh Rathi getting fined because he doesn't like people playing like robots. Like you saw that thing yesterday on.
I didn't know.
I was complaining about footballers being robots. And then the second thing is, I mean, are we seeing now the decline in Andre Russell's output? Turning 37 in a few weeks' time. He's not really bowling that much. When he does, he doesn't do a lot. Not really contributing that much with the bat. Are we seeing maybe the decline of Andre Russell as a force in T20 cricket? Certainly at this level, at least.
I think on Dre Russell's thought, you can't really argue with what's in front of your eyes. I think he's been playing a slightly more limited role every year for a number of years now, following the Dhoni trajectory to some extent, and that's to manage like his knees problem, which I think is fairly well documented in cricket. That he struggles with that. And that's got to catch up with you eventually, hasn't it? Like it's not something that you can run away from forever. He's playing a more diminished role, and that he'd been effective in that diminished role, I think, over the last few years. But it wasn't. I mean, like there was a while where just having Dre Russ in their team meant that KKR were a contender, and then they needed some other guys. But it was great to have Dre Russ. Like it was, a fantastic option. With bat and I think with ball at times as well, and now it kind of it's 2 overs tops of probably below average bowling, and a guy who, I mean, I think not that long ago in this chase, Andre Russell would have come in where Ramandeep Singh batted. As soon as Rahane was out, it would have been Dre Russ time. 7 overs to go. This is over. Yeah. They don't send him in. Then they send Raghavanshi as well. And so by the time he comes in, it's the 15th over. And I think that's indicative of, where he probably feels he is and where KKR feel he is. Like that's not an entry point thing. I think that's probably just a limitations of Andre Russell thing that they won't send him at that point. I mean, like it would have been an absolute no-brainer, wouldn't it, Dan, in 2022, 2023, to send Andre Russell as soon as Rahane's out. He can hit everything. It's not a problem. Like he'll win you the game, 11 and over, no problem.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember when I was working with Punjab 2022, and there was a game, and I think they just got that. I remember thinking, I said to my wife, like, they just got rustled. Like that was it. Punjab played well, but they got rustled. He doesn't do that so much anymore. And certainly I think the fear factor to some degree has gone among teams. I mean, he's still very respected for what he can do, but I don't think that there's that expectation now that he's going to do that with any kind of certainty that you would fear before. And yeah, I mean, it happens to everybody, but it's something that teams are often really bad at guarding against, and they overpay still for the veterans. And I think this is a really good example of what I meant the other day when I tweeted about the IPL, not being as high a standard this year, because like I feel like there aren't the superstars of back in the day. As you said, 7 overs left, needing 80 odd to win. You would come in, Russell would come in, and you'd be like, right, this is going to get done probably more often than not. Yeah. The fear factor of those, like the big names and the superstars of T20, and I don't see that anymore.
I think that's probably true. Just on Russell, to illustrate what I mean, you can do this with numbers by looking at numbers. 2022 faced 192 balls, 2023 156 balls, 2024 120 balls. Like this is him batting later and later in games, and this is him diminishing as a force. Like there is a clear downward trajectory in the number of games, basically, or the amount of balls that Dre Russ is now capable of facing. On your point about the IPL and quality, I think that's an interesting one, and I wonder whether I think it could be true. First of all, I have wondered that myself. I think there are definitely some factors that make it more likely than not that the IPL is a lower quality than it was when there were 8 teams. Obviously the number of players, then you've got impact subs. So even though that kind of means that you're seeing a better batter and a better bowler, it also means you're seeing an extra worse cricketer, which probably affects things like fielding. I think you're probably seeing as well, not to a huge extent, but to some extent, players are able to pick and choose which tournaments to play in, and can, if they so choose, swerve the IPL, or it doesn't necessarily. I think, or maybe to think about that a different way, it's not necessarily the end of their opportunities to make millions if they have a bad IPL. So you don't need to structure your entire cricket calendar around being in peak performance for the IPL, because you can just, if you do the ILT 20 and the 100 and a little bit of Big Bash, you're going to make the same as if you did the IPL, and you actually might enjoy those more in terms of like your freedom to move around and not have to live in a hotel and things like that. So I think there's two elements to that. One, some players choosing not to play it, and the really obvious example there, and I'm not saying he is a massive superstar, but it did happen. Harry Brook, Ben Stokes, then they're not there, and they probably would be there if they were, if it was the only show in town, which it isn't anymore. And I think maybe you see with some of the other players, some of the superstars, you don't have to structure your whole life to be at peak performance for the IPL anymore, because you do have other well-paying options, and that wasn't the case even 3 years ago. There was no ILT 20, there was no SA 20, the 100 paid peanuts, the Big Bash, similarly not really paying. It was kind of the IPL or bust if you were a franchise player, if you wanted to make serious bank. And
well,
I think maybe you see the reality of that. You see the knock-on effect of that in terms of quality.
Just so the listeners get an idea of what you're saying, because I think you're right to some degree, but I do still think that realistically, perhaps maybe an Australian bowler here or there, but mainly English centrally contracted players are well enough remunerated not to have to structure their year around the IPL. We've seen that. I don't think that Stokes or Brook really moves the needle too much in terms of upping the quality of the tournament. Although, I think Brook's a very good player. I'm well documented saying I don't think Stokes is even an average T20 player these days. But the point is that if we look at the money that you can get in other comps, for example, the 100 now has £200,000 top salary. That's roughly 2 crore in Indian money. So that's base price, the highest base price possible for an overseas player, and that's I think probably why a lot of the English players, also because the English players have to pay money back to the counties as well. That's why they register for a pretty high base price most of the time. The Big Bash probably broadly a similar amount, I would have thought. The SA20 pays more. The rumor was that Stokes' contract at MI Cape Town was about $800,000 US. So, and I know that there was players getting $400,000 or $500,000 for the SA20, even some of the richer teams in the Bangladesh league will pay between $30,000 and $50,000 US a game for someone to come over and play for them. ILT 20 is pretty similar. MLC is pretty similar to the 100 and the Big Bash in terms of the top end salaries, at least. So you can see how actually, if you played maybe 3-4 tournaments, especially if you played the SA20, maybe the ILT20, you could probably earn $1 million US without that much difficulty if you're a decent player, and that's without even playing the IPL. So you're right in saying, you know, you can structure your league's decisions and your calendar a lot differently to perhaps even 5 years ago now.
Yeah, and I'm not saying here that people will just not play the IPL, but I'm saying 5 years ago you had to. I think basically what Dan's saying there is backing this up. You had to play the IPL, and you had to be good in the IPL to make that million.
Yeah,
like it wasn't possible to do a month in England and a month in South Africa and 2 weeks in, you know, somewhere else and make the same money. Like it's the dial has shifted a little bit, and I think probably the salaries in the IPL, bearing in mind it is the NBA of cricket, basically, they probably haven't reflected that the market has shifted a little bit. And if you want the best players to treat it like the NBA of cricket and not just another franchise comp, maybe you need to consider remunerating them better.
Yeah, I can agree with that too. I mean, like, I think there's been some analysis written by Tim Wigmore among other people, which suggests that the IPL has a lower salary to revenue ratio for the IPL compared to any other sport, and it's not close. It's by some distance. So the players are hugely underpaid compared to what the franchise is making. And ultimately, that I feel that potentially in an ultra competing ecosystem, which I think we're quite a long way from, if ever seeing, it actually leaves them quite ripe to, say, a Saudi invested league taking Indian players and saying, all right, well, we're going to go and pay Virat Kohli $50 million to come and play for Jeddah Giants or something like that, you know, like that kind of thing. Yeah, that's definitely, I think, something that needs to change. I know that they've put the purse up by 20% this year, but it's got to go up a lot higher, I think.
And then finally, on the kind of, is the league better or worse? I think we're still seeing, and there's a few people have pointed this out. Someone's actually mentioned it in the chat. I think with some of these teams, so we're following a mega auction. Teams are, you know, you can refresh from scratch, and I think at an auction, what tends to happen is people buy based on reputation, and then you've got lots of senior players paid quite a lot of money, and then you have to work out sort of what to do with them. And I think we've probably got a little bit of a situation where at the moment there are places in teams filled by senior players who are kind of in them incorrectly. If you were going to do it purely based on talent, there are cheaper, younger guys who probably deserve a start, and that over a year or 2 years will probably start to work itself out. And I think you know, from the older guys' point of view as well, like a lot of these players who, if you get bought at 33, say, for 8 crore, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular here, but this is the sort of thing that happens quite regularly in the IPL. Yeah, you're not going to be like, oh, I should retire because I'm not good enough anymore. You're going to take the absolute stack of cash, aren't you? Like, you're going to say to your coach, yeah, I've still got it. Like, you're going to say all the right things, because that might be your big payday. When you were 27 and you were the best version of you probably got 1 crore or 2 crore. And now you're getting your payday, and it's like, so you kind of get that. There is that dynamic. Like you
I know players who do that. I know that, man. It's as you say, you mentioned names, but I know that has happened and probably will continue to happen. The thing is, for me, is that no one is forcing these teams to buy these old players. I mean, like, no one has forced CSK to buy these aging veterans. Like, that's a decision that they alone take. You know, that Royal Challengers Bangalore are not saying to CSK, you can only pick guys over the age of 30. Like that's their own decision, Like, and I think that actually, like, and Shri in the chat has talked about the lower standard of every season after a mega auction, and teams fixing their squads, in terms of the holes in their squad up in the last year cycle. But good planning stops the necessity for that to happen. I mean, if you're buying a player in a mega auction, realistically, you're looking at them as a 3-year cycle option, and you're not just looking at how they going to perform in year 1. You're looking at year 2 and particularly year 3 as well, because there's so few players who are good enough to or represent good value in mini auctions that you don't want to be beholden to a mini auction to sign half your squad again after you release a load. You've got to make really smart decisions, and I think that this. I think there are two observations here from my perspective. One is that the teams are just really still so bad at recruitment. Like we've seen, they've got away with it so far, but Lucknow they've got away with that by buying any openers. We've got CSK who retained Jadeja for 18. I actually think they did okay in the auction, but that was with the hand that they were dealt, and they still haven't. They've really struggled with their team combos, and they've had 3-4 months after the auction to work out their team combos, plus the planning in advance as well. So this shouldn't be that difficult. Honestly, this is stuff that I work with a lot with coaches and teams, and like this stuff's not difficult. Like it just requires logical thinking and some evidence-based decision making, but they seem so unwilling to do that. And the second thing that I think is a slight on a slight tangent, but a still relevant point in terms of the auction and the team building, is that the Syed Mushtaq Ali trophy was held mostly after the auction this year, which I think is a massive mistake. And actually, there are. I was saying it about Punjab already, but before the tournament, that there are teams who look better now than they did at the auction, and I think Punjab are probably one of those teams. So I just don't understand the point of having an auction before the major second tier domestic tournament.
Cool. We've gone over time a little bit on that game, but we've got one super chat in that I want to answer from Andy. Can CSK salvage this season? Some signs of life from Rachin Dubé and MS. Yeah. What changes would you make? How do you fix it? Lost it in the field. I think you covered most of that, Dan. Can they salvage the season though? Yes or no?
I think they can, but I think they're too stubborn to do it.
Fair. There we go. Dan has spoken. Also, just on the Lucknow KKR game, Rishabh Pant very much still on flop watch after he decided not to bat, which might not have been a bad decision. To be fair, it wasn't. It didn't affect the outcome of the game, but definitely you stay on flop watch if your team scores 238 and you choose not to bat. So, sorry, Rishabh, you're winning that race so far. That was my call for flop of the season, by the way, Dan. Rishabh Pant. And
right, okay, yeah, 27.
I'm not going to let anyone forget it until he gets 100, and then I'll shut up. That's my plan. Be back in a second.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Cricket Podcast. We've got one more game to talk about, and it was a thriller in Mumbai. Before we get into it, one last reminder, make sure you click like and subscribe. And as discussed at the beginning of the podcast, why don't you check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thecricketpod. I've already talked about our plans for that, but you also get access to our Discord where we basically do watch-alongs for all of the IPL games. And that's from just £4 a month. RCB v Mumbai, this is what happened. RCB batted first. Kohli did runs, 67 for him. Patidar, he did some runs, 64 runs for him. Jitesh Sharma, he put the icing on the cake, as it were, helped RCB up to 221. That's a decent effort. Mumbai, they came out, lost wickets early, then had a little mini recovery and then lost a couple more wickets. Surya Kumar Yadav didn't have a good day out. Surya Kumar Yadav did not have a good day out. 28 of 26 for him. But Tilak Varma, the villain of the weekend, He did 56 off 29. He looked like he dragged his team back into it. Hardik, he came in 42 off 15 for him. It looked like the pair of them were gonna take Mumbai to victory. Curse RCB. But not this version of RCB. Not this version of RCB, Dan. They managed to find some breakthroughs. The bowling came good. They restrict Mumbai to 209. It's a 12-run victory. What's happening? Are RCB good? Are they finally, in the 18th year of the IPL, are they finally a balanced team?
Oh, I don't think that they're perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But what I do think is that they're probably getting close to. They're one of the teams that's getting close to maximum value from their team and their squad so far. I think that we spoke about the Punjab sort of set up earlier where a lot of players are contributing in games, and I think we're seeing that with RCB. Here we saw Kohli, Padikkal, Patidar, Jitesh all contribute with the bat. We saw even though they missed with the bat, we saw Salt, Livingston, and Tim David do some stunning fielding. I mean, that catch that Salt set up for Tim David was something else, and it was with the ball. Josh Hazlewood is having an exceptional season, and they've got a lot of other players who are contributing. I mean, Krunal Pandya picked up a few late wickets at the end against Mumbai, but I mean, it was a I don't know what you call the last over. It was kind of like these weird bounces and stuff, but obviously he was kind of.
I like it.
He had a plan, which I like. They got away with obviously leaving the last over for a spinner, but sometimes you have to gamble and use front load your best bowlers to try and kill a chase, and then you bowl a spinner last over. I remember when I was last season 100 with Birmingham, we were at Trent Bridge against Trent Rockets, and we were in the same position. Trent Rockets were ahead in the chase. We used our paces early, and then we had Dan Mousley bowling a double over in the last 2 overs, and obviously he was exceptional in that situation. But that's fine. Like front loading a pacer is fine. So I've got no issue with RCB doing that whatsoever. And they just look a good unit, really. Like and also, the other thing I've noticed from looking at their data so far, all teams' data, they're the best fielding team in the league, in my opinion, and they have by quite some distance the lowest non-boundary strike rate conceded of all teams. It's not even close, and so they've got an exceptional group of fielders. They've got another one. Probably one of the best fielders in England, Jacob Ethel on the bench, who's not even playing for them as well. So they seem to be a team who've got that have been constructed with that in mind, and I think that at the moment they look a good shot for qualification.
I'd go as far as saying I'd be surprised if they didn't qualify. I think at the moment, I think they've got a lot of good pieces, and if you're looking for sort of weaknesses in the team, there are a couple, but they're not like glaring great big holes in the side of your ship. Do I love Devdutt Padikkal at 3? Not really, but is he terrible? No, also not. He's just fine. Livingston blows very hot and cold. Is that, would I want to put my mortgage on a Liam Livingston innings? Oh, no, never. But that's not to say he won't ever deliver one. Like he does do that. Like he's got it in his locker. And on the bowling side, I don't think anything will ever make me love Yaf Dayal. But he's not objectively awful. And you can probably say the same for Suyash Sharma. Like he's definitely not the best spinner in the league, but he's fine. And these are the bad guys. These are the bad guys. And I don't think any of them, I think most of them like quite comfortably get into most of the other teams in the league as a replacement player. I don't think any of them are like, there's no clown show. Normally with RCB, we're accustomed to seeing some superstars and then some like absolute clowns. And I don't feel like this is a team with many clowns. I think they're a team of pretty good cricketers, and actually you might even say, compared to some of the other IPL RCB teams over the years, they're a team that are slightly devoid of star power in comparison. Like there's no AB de Villiers here, there's no Chris Gale, there's not they didn't spend all the money on Cameron Green or something like that.
Was.
Like it's like
it's about teams being so bad at like team building and getting their team combos, and not planning well for the auction, and then not planning with their combos post auction and stuff like that. But actually, this team look like they are coherently put together. Everyone's batting in like roughly their best roles. Everyone's bowling in roughly their best roles. It just kind of, the strategic bar for success in the IPL is so low. But so like being competent and logical elevates you very high, and that's what they've done, and they've done it well.
This isn't to say, by the way, that I think RCB are going to win all the games from now on. I still think I still think they're a beatable team, but I'm also prepared to, admire what they've done so far, which is win 3 out of 4 cricket matches fairly comfortably, and the one they lost to Gujarat Titans. Well, you played a team that are playing really good cricket as well. Losing to Gujarat Titans so far this season, nothing to be ashamed about, and even in that game, it could have been so much worse for them. They managed to get to 169 after being 40 for 4. That's not a trait of RCB. When RCB are 40 for 4, they're supposed to be all out for 70. That's what's supposed to happen. They're not supposed to get some sort of a score on the board and then bowl quite well at the beginning and actually look like they might pull off an upset before 2 really good batters take it away from them. Like it's even in their defeat, I've been kind of, I'm prepared to say they didn't look awful. So yeah, decent for RCB. Mumbai, on the other hand, that's it's a concern, isn't it? Hardik, he didn't cry after this one, and he actually batted fairly well, but 1 win from 5, even though they've played okay cricket. The thing about our Mumbai, and I'll let you talk in a second, Dan, I won't just do a monologue for the rest of the show. The thing about Mumbai, I think it's like they've had all of the performances you'd need to be a team that have won 3 matches, but they've not necessarily come in the games where you'd need them. Like you get Tilak Varma doing well in one game and then absolutely trashing the place in the other. Surya Kumar Yadav doing well in one game and trashing the place in the next. Hardik, hitting well in 2 matches, and then in the game they needed him to hit well in, nerdled. Like it's you can see why they could win. You can see why they should probably have won more than 1 match, and their net run rate is like pretty much bang on 0. It's not. This isn't a team that are getting whacked, but it's not kind of working, is it?
No, I think you're spot on, mate. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that they are not an 8th in the table team, right? Their underlying data compared to other teams is not bad. Like it's not in any way, shape, or form one of the worst teams in the league in terms of their underlying data. The more in-depth stuff that I'll look at in terms of when I'm building like a table of justice that I showed yesterday on Twitter. They are not a bad team. They're not performing badly. But they're not, as you say, they're not all doing it at the same time. We talked about RCB and Punjab. They're all putting together. The players are contributing all at the same time in matches. But this team is not doing that. It looks disjointed. It looks a bit like a team of 11 ones rather than a team, if that makes sense. And yeah, that makes me wonder a little bit about the sort of dynamics behind the scenes. Some strange decision making. I completely disagreed with the retiring out of Tilak Varma in the game before. What do they expect that Santner's going to add over set Tilak Varma, even though he might be struggling a little bit? And then we saw Tilak Varma then bat really well in this match yesterday, and just tactically look so weird. I don't know why, but they also subbed off Pathur after 15 overs yesterday and brought Rohit Sharma on with 5 overs to go. Their bowling innings, so that just doesn't make any sense either. So they make some weird decisions. I still think that the more I see it now, they're probably and now they've got Bumrah back in the team. I think it's even easier for them to do this. They've got to go either or with Rickleton and Jacks, and then that maybe allows them to bring in Jacobs as a hitter. They've got no real. I don't think they've got a lot of idea about where to bat Tilak Varma and Namandir, who are batting in different positions to where they bat domestically. Yeah, there are lots to sort out in this team. Like I said, a team of 11 ones, a team that looks like it's been put together with names rather than actually looking to construct a team with specific roles in mind.
It's like an 11 from a charity match. I'm serious. Like, it is like, oh, they've all turned up. It's like Namandir had a bit of a big night last night, so he'll bat down the order. Like, Rohit Sharma, do you fancy fielding? No, I'll just sit on the deck chair for the first 15 overs. Oh, actually, you know what? I'll come on. The fans want to see me. Like, it's a little bit like that. And if you look at the names, I mean, they're if we're talking star power, we were talking about this earlier in the tournament. I mean, Bumrah, Bolt, Hardik Pandya, Tilak Varma, Suryakumar Yadav, Will Jacks, Rohit Sharma. These are big names in T20 cricket. Like, there is a lot of star power in this side, and it's I think it's a little bit of a shame actually for the comp that they haven't got going, because I think they'd make like a nice villain if they were playing good cricket and they did manage to get themselves up near the playoffs. Like, taking down that team to get through to an IPL final, for example, would feel like a big achievement, I think, for any of the other teams in the comp. And the way they're playing, or the results they've had so far, suggests that they're probably not going to feature at the business end. And it's, you know, we want to, like, with respect to some of the other teams, you know, Chennai Super Kings maybe, we want to see Jasprit Bumrah bowling in the playoffs. Like, that's a thing that as cricket fans, we want to see the best bowler bowling in the biggest games, and probably we're not going to get that. It's quite hard to come back from 1 and 4.
Well, they're going to have to win 7 out of the last 9 games. As simple as that.
Yeah. Dan, we're going to wrap up there. There are 3 games. I mean, we can do a 30-second preview for each if you like.
Go on then.
Next show will be Friday. So next 3 games are Gujarat Titans v Rajasthan Royals. Gujarat, are they going to continue their good form, or are Rajasthan Royals back?
Look, Gujarat playing above the sum of their parts. Table of Justice, I have ranks them number 1, but a lot of that's been driven by their top 3, who just consistently churn out the volume of runs. I think that there are more. They make some weird decisions themselves. 2 overseas players plus Rutherford as an impact sub is just so strange. When they've decided that they want to. I mean, I don't know if Kirtsy's fit, but if anyone thinks that Ishant Sharma is a better option than Gerald Kirtsy, and then blows my mind, and the same for Glenn Phillips over Shah Khan or Twatia. People say, oh, they also want to keep the same combinations for when Rabada's back, but actually they've got games to win. They're just go and win them. Yeah. They've got away with it so far. I do think that kind of their variance is lower than Rajasthan's, who probably have a higher ceiling but a lower floor. Interesting game, actually.
Where's your money? Proverbial money.
Well, proverbial money, yeah. I'm not allowed real money. I think Gujarat are hard to beat.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. RCB v Delhi is the Thursday match. Delhi unbeaten in the season so far. Kind of an interesting team. In some ways, the antithesis to RCB, but they've been quite successful. What do you think of that one back at the Chinnaswamy?
I think they've got more holes than RCB, actually, despite a really good start to the season. RCB seem to know what they're doing in terms of the roles for each player and stuff. Seems to be pretty well planned. Problem is they're back at Chinnaswamy, where they don't have a good record, but they look like they've tried to construct a squad that's a little bit more effective at home this year. I would make RCB favourites for this.
I think I'd agree with that. I think they're fairly strong favourites, but it's IPL, you never know. And then Friday, Chennai v Kolkata Knight Riders. A slightly hard one to call. I mean, the theme of this podcast has been maybe some of these guys are too old, centered mainly around Chennai Super Kings and Kolkata Knight Riders. So which retirement home 11 is going to win?
Well, and the other thing as well, games have been played at Jaipur, and they can't just produce a ranked turner that's really slow two-pace surface, because KKR have got really good spinners as well. So it's definitely a really tricky one in terms of strategy for CSK. Look, I want to see CSK do better. I think they're too stubborn in terms of the strategy, and they either don't know what they're doing, or they're too stubborn. I'm not sure which is which right now in terms of the team combos. So therefore, I think I have to go with KKR just because they've got more batting firepower.
There we go. They're the next 3 matches. We'll be back on Friday. Do click like and subscribe. Follow us on various social media platforms at The Cricket Pod, and we're on Patreon, patreon.com/The Cricket Pod. Dan, where can people find you?
At SA Advantage on Twitter. You can read stuff at danweston.substack.com, or you can check me out on YouTube, Dan Weston Cricket. So plenty of options there.
Cool. See you later.